Ladies, this is usually Leah's job, so bear with me. Okay, I think we all straight now. I'm gonna go ahead and start, and I guess Cindy will come back on. I have to let her in. If not, I'll give her a call once we get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition Show. My name is James Slim Overton, and I'm here with co-hosts Thomas the Colonel Chapman and Leah Drake Stipp is she'll be here shortly. She's away for a while. But we're here tonight. Before we start with our guests and I'll let Colonel, I just want to let the people on Facebook know about Portsmouth Coffee Talk. When you go our YouTube channel, when you go to our YouTube channel, we always ask you to subscribe, but also like too. You know, if you already subscribed, that's fine. But each video you watch of ours, please like, because that helps us get our numbers up, and it helps us when we want to go to someone and do a presentation for sponsorship, and we'll be able to show them how many people we have watching. So each time you go to our video, just like, even if you go way back and look at something, always like. Okay, got that out of the way. And Colonel, before we introduce the guests, you want to do your thing?
Yes, so those folks out there in Electron Land, the views stated on this program are the guests and the hosts and nobody else, and no third party representation. And so that should keep us out of Facebook jail.
And Colonel, I'm a mute and give Cindy a call. So if you will you please start off with the ladies?
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and start. I'll start off. Senator Lucas, are you there?
I'm here. Can you, did I mute myself?
I see you right. I see you right there.
Okay, all right.
I have my first question to be for you, and with a comment. You're running for re-election, am I correct?
That is correct.
And I see this Confederate governor, Governor Youngkin, has been up there living off the fat of the lamb of the previous governor. And I have looked around, and I've looked around and looked around to see what he has done. And I could say he has not done nothing that wasn't set up by you and the Democratic Party. Now, if you look at it, and I say when I talk about your reelection, is your seat standing in between you and the rights of everybody? Because they own the House, if you lose your seat, what happens?
Okay, well, the Senate election or the Senate races, as crucial as they are, if we don't maintain a majority in the Senate and the House does not regain the majority in the House, then we're subject to both chambers in the Senate being subject to the whims of the governor, because he'll have just what he wants to try to turn back the hands of time on the progress that we've been able to make in the Commonwealth. Because as you know, over the last two bienniums, we have been able to get some criminal justice reform bills passed. We've been able to get more money into education, in particular with school construction. And since the Honorable Costella B served on the school board, most times when we're dealing with issues affecting funds going to the localities, I will give her a call to make sure that they're being directed in the right way. And especially, for example, I call Costella when it came to funding for the SROs and whether or not that was a good idea. And of course, some localities in the Commonwealth wanted SROs and others did not. And the ones who did not chose not to because they thought that it would criminalize students at an earlier age. But then in some schools, we know that we have some students whose behaviors are such that we need someone who's going to help maintain some semblance of decorum in the classroom so that the teachers can teach. And so there were arguments on both sides of the issue. So we had to weigh those different discussions before we move forward with making those budgetary appropriations. But some of the things that we got passed in particular, as it has to do with, let's say for EVMS and the merger, those kind of things, some of those things the governor was in favor of, but there are a lot of issues that we wanted to get past that the governor and his administration were not in favor of, because as you know, they wanted to ban books, They want to talk about CRT, which is something that doesn't exist. They want to whitewash our history. But for the majority in the Senate, he would have been able to get a lot of that crap passed.
Mhm.
And it was only because we had a majority in the Senate that we were able to hold the line. But the majority is so slim, it's just not comfortable to just have a 1 to 2 vote margin in the Senate. So we're hoping that after this primary, that we'll be able to pick up enough seats that will have at least 24, because we know on any given day, as it stands right now, 2 of our members we can't count on 100% of the time.
I was gonna bring that
Okay.
up.
Colonel,
Watch.
let me stop you just for a minute, because we didn't introduce the ladies, and I want to take it back a little bit. We'll get a chance to talk about the election and everything, but during this is the last day of Women's History Month, and we want to have these ladies, and most people know them, but our guest tonight, and we call them the Queens of Portsmouth, Honorable Costella B. Williams, Honorable Cynthia P. Morrison, and Virginia State Senator L. Louise Lucas. And welcome, ladies. Thanks for agreeing to be here tonight. And I wanted to, you all have been in politics for a while, and they call you the Queens, but you all have really been hard workers. I mean, community, you've been activists, even in your positions as elected officials. You have been elected multiple times. You have helped other people get elected throughout the city and throughout the state. But you all's history go back, way back, as far as being a trio. You have done things individually and collectively. Let's go back to those early days when you all first got together, or, I don't know if it was 2 or all y'all met at the same time, or, or it's just the politics brought you together, or the social, the sororities. Or let's go back and talk about, and anyone you can start first, how you got together and that started this journey that you all have been on for decades.
Well, there was a void that was created when then Delegate Kim Melvin and then Commonwealth Attorney Johnny Morrison kind of had to step out of the political leadership. And there was a void that was formed that would needed filling. And the Honorable Cynthia Morrison can tell you how we got together from there. Somebody had to fill that void for leadership. And Cynthia, if you might want to tell them how that happened.
Yeah, we really thought back to the very beginning when Delegate Melvin and then Commonwealth Attorney Johnny Morrison got started in politics. We had a very, very great organization here in our city that was headed by the ministers who were located here. One in particularly, Pastor Joe B. Fleming, had come to town from Richmond, and they created what was a forum for the citizens to address some of their civic concerns. And Senator Lucas, myself, and Costella, along with a few others from the community, got together and decided we needed such a forum again. And that was the beginning of us really working together as a complete team, trying to be activists here in the city of Portsmouth. And so today we have that team still in place. It is very active in the political events here in the city. And Senator Lucas, Costella, and myself are just part of the team. The team still exists, and we get a few of our candidates elected here and there.
A few. Costella, you're the same way, because what was the climate when you all first got together? Because it's been different times when certain things were going on, but when y'all first got together, what was the climate? I guess it was a need for more representation of our communities, and that was the drive that y'all had to try to get some people up on the city council to represent us.
Yes, well, I think first of all, there's always unity in numbers when we can come together and agree. And of course, we didn't always agree. and we would have some very, very heated discussions on who to support. And, you know, we'd have the candidates in, and of course, I mean, sometimes in the beginning, you might think it's one candidate, but after the discussions and the meetings and the interviews, it's somehow we all came to the decision that that particular person was the best person for our endorsement or whatever. But I think the beauty of maybe Cindy, Louise, and I is that we do not always agree on everything, but we always put the mission ahead of all the other stuff.
That's correct.
And regardless of what some people try to say about us, that it's about us, the power. It's not about that for me, because, you know, school board, they only gave us like $2,500 for 50 years. But to me, it truly is, and for Cindy and Louise, for the betterment of the city. And I can give you one example that people just don't understand the amount of energy and work that Senator Lucas put in to trying to get this casino here. And we all know that everyone doesn't favor a casino. But if you look at the results of the first 9 days of the revenue, $9 million, and the tax benefit that we received, that's hard work. And it took her 20 years to do that. And it's just so many things that, you know, and for me, you all know me, that I'm pretty outspoken, and I'm going to say what I have to say, then I move on. But that's the beauty of the friendship and the relationship, that we say what we need to say, and then we still remain friends and move on. And I think it's been a good, and it's not just Cindy, Louise, and I, it's the entire team that makes it work.
Correct. Correct.
Because without them, without the remainder, and I'm talking about the Martin Luther King Leadership Steering Committee, without them, we could not do the things that we do without these ministers and the volunteers. So I never feel like we would win all of the seats, whatever we endorse, but I can tell you it's a good feeling. The last time we won all 8,
That's
whomever
right.
we endorse. So that's a good feeling. And my thing is for the betterment of the city.
Absolutely.
And that's my main thing.
And I think it's also, we never give up. We may not always get it right the first time.
That's
But we
correct.
know that you can't just throw up your hands and walk away from it, because as Costella just said, it's not about us. It's about what is best for our community, what is best for our citizens, what is best for our young people, our senior citizens. All of us may not have been born in Portsmouth like Senator Lucas, but Costella and I got here as fast as we could, and we have made it home. And so you want to take an interest, an active interest in your home, and you want it to be the very best that it can be. Because after all, this is where we live. I've lived here. I'm sure Costella numbers are like mine. I've lived here longer than I've lived any place else on earth. So this is home. I may not have been born here, but Portsmouth is most definitely home.
And that's amazing. Colonel, didn't mean to interrupt you, but if you want to get back in there, I just wanted to start it off.
I'd like
in
to
a way
add one more thing. I'd like to add one more thing to
Go ahead.
what my sisters have said. That we don't always agree. And even when we don't, when we leave out of that room, we agree that we're going to be united on what the decision is going forward. And we may mumble under our breath and say, well, I don't go along with you, but we're not going to be divided publicly. We are never going to let the public see us that way. Because the worst thing that can happen is for the other side to see some fracture in your group.
Mhm.
And we don't want that to happen. So we try to make sure that when we come out publicly, that we come out with a united front. And we just like both of my sisters have said, we don't always agree that the candidate we choose is the best candidate, but we swallow hard and we stick with that. And publicly, we keep that faith and we go forward with it. And you're right, we don't always get it right. But one thing is, we're going to be consistent. We're going to be united.
I think the disagreements are healthy. You know, if all of you all agreed, I don't think we would be, you know, the benefactors of all the things you have done. Those disagreements make the other person think, well, maybe I should look at it a different way. And then you have all these people trying to draw push a wedge between all of you by saying all these different things. But like you said, Louise, y'all remain, you know, united regardless of the disagreements, and we are the better for it. Okay, go ahead, Colonel. I'm sorry.
You know, this discussion reminds me when I was a staff officer working for several generals, and we always got, we could argue, fuss and fight or whatever while we're in the staff. But when we came up with the decision, and whoever's the leader, the GO says, we're going to take this recommendation, we all salute the flag, which y'all are saluting the flag, and you go out as one, no matter what. You may have a different opinion behind the closed doors, that you kept your opinions behind closed doors. And like Senator Lucas says, you don't let anybody divide you. Then you go out there, and that's how you have that success. And I believe somebody said you were 8 for 8 in the last election. And that's how you get there. But I'll also say that as I look at the three of you, and since this is the last day of Black History Month, Women's Month, y'all three are a perfect example of selfless service. And I can say that Black women saved America by stepping up in the last presidential election. And I'm going back to say, Black women, the three of y'all saved the state of Virginia. As I see Senator Lucas standing up there with the slim majority in the Senate that's saving the Commonwealth. And going further back, I see the three of y'all being active in the city of Portsmouth, saving the city of Portsmouth and giving direction and guiding it from afar, not with a heavy hand, but as they say, being the three of you being like what's a good example? The Wizard of Oz.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Well, what we've done historically is, once we elect candidates, we step back and let them lead in the positions that they've been elected to.
Yes.
If they seek our guidance, we will offer it. And if we offer it and they refuse it, then we just step back and let them run the program as they so choose. And I will be the first to admit that we've not always been, and I will say, I've not always been right in who I thought was the perfect person to serve. But we all stuck together with that person, and until we got to a point where we could elect somebody to replace them. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, perfect. So as we look at, what do you think about the future? Where are we going from here? What's the vision of the three of y'all's vision for the future?
Well, my main priority, because I am chair of education and health, is to make sure that our educational system is sound and that all students have an opportunity to a quality education. It costs the same amount of money to educate a child in Portsmouth and Chesapeake as it does to educate a child in Northern Virginia. I want to make sure that we get our fair share of funding for our students, to make sure that our teachers' salaries, and I'll be working on that once I get past this next election and I'm chair of finance and appropriation, to make sure that we try to bring our teachers' salaries up to a national level. It only takes willpower to do that, because the person who is chair of finance has a lot of latitude in terms of what they can write into the budget that other members of that committee are not able to do. And education is my number one priority because I believe that education is going to be the one issue that will level the playing field. Let's say, for example, this last year, the 2023 session of the General Assembly, I introduced a bill, a literacy bill for grades 4 through 8. Last year, I did the one from K through 3, and then of course took that from 4 through 8 because we need teaching specialists in the classroom with the teacher so that we'll have someone dealing specifically with students to make sure that they're reading at grade level. Because if a student is not reading and understanding with some comprehension by the time they're in 3rd grade, they will continue to drop behind. So one of the things that's near and dear to my heart is to make sure that we continue to fortify our educational system by making sure that all students have an opportunity to a quality education. And you don't do that by setting up charter schools and cherry picking students. And if it's good for a charter school for this part of the community, then it ought to be good for all students. I want to make sure that all students have the same opportunity, that our teachers have the same resources, and that their salaries are commensurate with what they do, and they deserve to be compensated better than they are right now for what they do. We did include some incentives. So going forward, I will continue to work on education being my number one priority. But of course, economic development, as you all know, has always been a priority of mine, because I personally think to the extent that we can get small businesses up and running and established, the stronger our communities will be. Because those businesses will be employing people. And you know, I knew that once the casino was built, that people would come and that there would be other businesses growing up around it. And so education is one, economic development is two, because people need to be paid. They need to be compensated for for the work that they do. And I think that's how we move out, not just Portsmouth, but our whole Commonwealth forward. So if you ask me what my priorities are going to be, those are the first two, education and economic development. And of course, I've always been working on the criminal justice reform package, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as we have more time. If we have.
Okay.
Well said, well said. Ms. Williams?
Yeah, well, you know, I think my vision, of course, you know, I'm retired. So my vision is to be on a beach somewhere, laid back, relaxing. That's my vision. But as far as the city of Portsmouth, I just pray that we can come together and put aside all the pettiness, the divisiveness, the bigotry, or whatever, and do what's best for the citizens. Because when I believe when one of us rise, we all should rise. And I'm excited for the city of Portsmouth. We become a destination Portsmouth for many. And I think the revenue that will come will help us as far as our infrastructure with the schools and public safety and so many other things. And I hope that I was looking at the budget for the upcoming budget where they're proposing moving the jail off the waterfront, and we need to develop that. We need to do more economic development because we need tax revenue. And everyone knows that Portsmouth is about 41% federal government. We get nothing. So if we can develop our city with more revenue, attract more people, and of course, keep our schools accredited and attract younger people, I think that would be my hope and prayer for the city of Portsmouth. And I think some people don't seem to understand that the casino is a private investment business.
Thank you for saying that.
They read the paper and they saw $9 million and they think that $9 million need to go to them. And I've spent a lot of time on Facebook explaining to them the $9 million went to the casino. The formula is set up that the city gets 1.5%. And so out of that 9 million for those 9 days or 8 days, we did get 538,000. You imagine that for 8 days. So see what we could do for our city with that type of revenue coming in with the projections of $16 million.
Correct.
So I'm very excited for Portsmouth. I think that we have a lot to offer. I think sometimes we are our own worst enemies, because we talk about it, we castigate the schools, we do whatever, and the schools are fully accredited. I was on the school board when every school was accredited 100%. And I don't know if you all remember when Dr. Stuckwich challenged the principals
Mhm.
that if they became accredited, he would do the Michael
That's
Jackson
right. Mhm.
moonwalk with the board members. And I was right up there with him,
Yeah.
and it was very exciting.
Wasn't a pretty
But
sight, but he
It
did
was
it.
very exciting, and we were so excited. But we still had that same small segment, that still said the schools were no good, they didn't do anything. So I think they're going to be with us forever, but we're going to look on the brighter side. And that's my vision for Portsmouth, that we all can rise together.
Well said, well said. Ms. Morrison?
I would just add that somehow, and I think we do a pretty good job of it here in the city of Portsmouth, but we need to get our citizens to understand
Mhm.
politics is a part of our life. That if we don't keep working to get it right, all of those things that we hold near and dear to our heart will be challenged. The people in Richmond who make the laws for the state of Virginia and the city of Portsmouth, it impacts our everyday lives. The school board that Costella sits on, if they don't work hard for our children, then our children don't get the resources that they need. And years ago, when I came to Portsmouth, I never quite got it because we were a small city. But we evidently had a good formula because we kept Senator Lucas there long enough that she's now the president pro tem for the Senate. We brought Don Scott on, and he's a bold young man with
Oh, my heavens, yes.
abilities, and he's the minority leader for the House, all in one little small city called Portsmouth. We have an opportunity, and I think that our members of the General Assembly have definitely worked very hard, especially under this governor, to make a strong mark, not just for the citizens of Portsmouth, but for all of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. All of us who are people of color know without a good education, it's hard.
Mhm.
Oh, my gosh.
It is extremely difficult. And so I do believe, as Senator Lucas was stating about the education, and Costella about the education, I tell my children, they're in their 40s, all the time, that my life, I got more years behind me than I got left in front of me. But what I would like to see is for the future to be bright and rosy for the young people who are coming up behind us, that they have more opportunities than our generation has had. And we can only do that if we keep our educational system strong and we put strong leadership back in Richmond, back in Washington, D.C., because the decisions that these people make impact our everyday lives. So it's not a fight that we can afford to give up. It just isn't. And so I think regardless of how, like I say, we don't always get it right, but we don't ever stop trying. And our
That's right.
young people and all the other citizens here in Portsmouth have to begin to realize how important the elected officials, the people you put in office, the impact they're gonna have on your everyday life.
That's correct.
Sure, you
Yeah.
put a bum down in that office that I'm in, the clerk of circuit court, your records, your property, your everything will be messed up. As I like to say, we touch
That's right.
the cradle to the grave. And if we don't get it right, then your marriage license, when you need to try to prove that you married to him so you can get that insurance money and anything else that he got, you're gonna have a hard time getting it. And I'm just saying that it impacts our lives. And it's critical that we keep people who are concerned about the community in these elected positions, all of them.
I have to say this, and since you mentioned that, and the people coming up, the young people coming up behind us, do you all still feel like it? And I don't want to use this term, I think it might be outdated, that you have to pay your dues, but I think you have to be prepared if you're going to run for a public office. And a lot of the young people coming up felt like that was something that we, as the older generation, was doing to keep them from running for office, because they wanted to come right in and go right to the top. And everybody they were around paid their due, well, were prepared for office. Do you still feel like it's still important for the candidates coming up to be prepared and pay their dues? Because we've seen the results of some who have gone against the grain, per se, and thinking that they were ready, but were not ready. And it's not that we, it might just be a different way that they prepare themselves. It doesn't have to be the way that they feel like we are saying they have to go, but just being prepared. And I'm saying all that to say, do you all still feel like that's very important for us in order to get good candidates? Because everybody feels like they can run because they can run.
I agree with you. And it's hard work.
Yeah.
It is not easy. I mean, Costella on school boards, she couldn't go lay on that beach because she had you can't just get elected and don't put the work in.
That's correct.
And to follow up on James' statement, I think it's important to note that Louise, we go back to the NAACP before you were ever elected to office.
Oh, you're talking about more than 40 years ago.
More than 40 years ago. So we go back before you were elected into office, but upon running for office, the one thing I can say about the three of you is that not only do you endorse the candidates, but you also put your money and your time and your effort in, which is extremely important. So what are your thoughts? As James is saying, like the younger people are coming up and feel that the world owes them something because they went to school, they have their degree, they really haven't been involved in the community, but they think they want to run for office. People see it as a glorified position, not realizing all the work that comes with being in office. What are we doing to prepare, to mentor, to get young people prepared to learn those things that they need to learn so that should they decide to run, they'll be more qualified in running?
Well, I'd like to start by saying that I have a serious problem with people who've not been involved with anything in the community, never went to a civic league, never belonged to any of the civic or social organizations that impact the plight or the progress of the people in our city. And they come up and they want to run. And a lot of them, seriously, do not belong to any organization that helps people. I still have a problem with people running who come like that. I personally think, let me give you one example of what I'm talking about. When Vernon Tillis graduated from Old Dominion University, he went to work in Cynthia Marshall's office for a while. He came to work in my office as an intern. And then I hired him as my legislative assistant. He had gone to LEFCO training, and I met him, he and three other young men that I decided to mentor at that LEFCO class. And then after I made him my legislative assistant, he went to the General Assembly the very next year. I made him my chief of staff. He was involved with the Portsmouth Democratic Committee. He was involved with the NAACP. He was involved with Church and Community in Action. He attended the Civic League meetings. And of course, I know a lot of that was because of the position he held in my office, but he continued to do that. And then Vernon subsequently got a job in the office of U.S. Senator Mark Warner. He went from there to go to work for Verizon. He ran for the school board, and now he's on the city council. That's what I call paying your dues. And I've had 4 people to come through my office who have followed that same path, who are now in elective office. And let's take Jonathan Freeman, my last chief of staff. He came to me from the Obama administration working as a field coordinator. I brought him in as one of my legislative assistants one year at the General Assembly. The next year after Vernon left, I made Jonathan my chief of staff. Now Jonathan is now the liaison to the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. So what they've done is they paid their dues and they've used each position as a stepping stone or a ladder to get to the next higher position. All of the students who've come through my office, the young people who have come through my office, have done extremely well. They've worked in your offices as well. They've worked with you, Costella. They've worked with you, Cindy.
Yeah.
And these are the caliber of people that we want to see leading our community, serving on school boards, serving on city council. And at some point, you know, Costella, I think Vernon may have taken your position on the school board. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think he did.
Right. And then he moved on. He went to city council, and I think
And it
I think
shows.
that's just
Yeah.
what we need.
And it
Mhm.
shows.
And he's
Sure.
prepared each meeting.
He's prepared.
He's
You can
Right, but
tell.
see-
prepared each meeting.
Right. And see, so what we do, and a lot of people don't know this. Let me give you one other example, one that everybody can appreciate. Aja Moore, Sheriff Moore's daughter, was in college at Virginia, at VCU.
Mhm.
At VCU. I brought her on as an intern in my office. And then after Vernon was getting prepared to move on to his next position and Jonathan was still there, I hired Aja as my legislative assistant. Aja did so well, she got the recognition of the governor's office, and she was stolen from me by Ralph Northam. And she went to work in the office of the governor. From there, she went to work as a lobbyist in Richmond, and she's doing extremely well. That's the kind of thing I like to see our young up and coming leaders do, is
Mhm.
follow a path where you're learning along the way before you jump out and just try to say, oh, I want to be, I guess you call it kingpin.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you're not, paying your dues means also learning along the way. And there's no question in my mind that the 4 people who have come through my office as interns and as legislative assistants and chief of staff, that either one of them will be able to serve very capably when I retire from the Senate. Either one of them could step into that position.
Now I'm coming on late, so I
And-
hope I'm not bringing, I'm sorry, Costella, go ahead, dear.
No, and I was going to say, and there are many others that you see them very active in the community.
Sure.
And they
I just use those as
serve-
examples.
Yeah, they're
Mhm.
very good examples. And there are some others that you see them working in the community, serve
Mhm.
on numerous boards
Sure.
and commissions, and they do things to prepare themselves. And it appears to me that those particular people, they do make better legislators. And when you watch them, whether on school board or city council, you can tell those that have had some type of experience in the community and working with other people.
You know,
And
and
I mean, a
it-
good example to me is Tamara Shoemate.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
even, I can't do her now, I call her Q,
Q.
Cardell.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
You know, the
exactly.
school board has some very good people
Mhm.
that can easily transition
Mhm.
to city
Absolutely.
council.
Any one of them.
You
I
know,
mean, either.
as you mentioned, the boards and commissions as well, I wanted to find out, what are your thoughts on individuals being paid to serve on a board or commission, which is supposed to be a volunteer position in the city of Portsmouth?
Well, of course, for me, I disagree with it completely. It's different if you're corporations where they make big money, maybe. But for citizens, taxpayer money, I've always thought it was volunteer. And I believe my personal opinion is when you volunteer and do it out of the goodness of your heart, then you might be a little bit more effective with it. So I don't agree with paying them the stipend of $50 or $100. I don't know what it was. That's my
Right.
opinion. Mhm.
Any others?
Well, I'll
Okay.
go back if since this got a little note here, and I was listening to some of the background of the people we talked about, and I guess I can summarize it. They were gaining a high degree of depth and breadth of experiences, meaning they were deep and wide, and so it didn't make them hollow. And they also gained through the various discussions. They have a lived experience in the real world. So when they do get to those positions, they function at a high level, and it is telling. And I think you go back to all these discussions. It goes back to the citizens of the Commonwealth and citizens of Portsmouth. They are responsible for their own livelihoods and what's the future. And the only real sense of power is the power of the vote. They must get out and vote, because they cannot keep Senator Lucas in her position if we don't, as an example, if we don't go out and vote. You won't get representation in the House of Representatives if you don't go out and vote. If you don't vote, you can't keep that person out there in the school board or the city council. And all those decisions, you can correct me wrong, with the people in power make, affects each and every one of us. What say you?
Exactly.
That's true. That's true. Very true. But I
Also,
also want to add that people can be very effective in the community without being elected to office. I remember when we first moved here, and I always want to salute her, is Miss Lucy Overton.
Yes, indeed.
And I remember the article in the newspaper that I was reading about her, that in order to get elected in Portsmouth, you had to go and sit in Miss Lucy's chair.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and she was well known throughout the community. She never wanted to run for office, but she was very instrumental in getting people elected. And also, as we do Women's History Month, want to salute her daughter, Dolores Overton Short, who was the first Black registrar in the city. So it takes all of us working together, all kinds of people. And we, it's just not the elected, it's everybody, that person that's in the background that will work hard for you. And I think about Carl Edmonds. And Carl has worked the polls at Lakeview for, I guess, over 20 years or more. But they know him, they look for him. And same thing with James Overton and Benet and all of them over there at JFK. So we know the people that can get our peoples. They look for them, they trust them. When they go there, they might not know who to vote for, but they know James is going to tell them straight. And he's a fair man, and Benet and all these people. So it's not about, to me, it's not about us versus them. It's just about, we just trying to get the very best people for our community to serve the people. And believe me, we have caught a lot of flack. I have, Louise has, Cindy has, because regardless of the other people, somehow we get the blame or the credit. but if, and we're very strong women, so if we don't support you, we don't mind letting you know we don't. And so that brings a lot of flack, a lot of dissension, but that's just the way it is.
also
And sometimes, like they've said, sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, but we don't give up. We just
also
keep
like to
trying.
note that, as hard as you all work for candidates, you also the first to hold them accountable. If
Yes.
they misuse the office or they're just not following through what they promised during their campaign. And
Yeah.
that's important. I talk about that all the time. And not only you, but the citizens that go to the polls and vote. You have to hold those people accountable. Even if you like them, it doesn't mean that you cut off friendships with them. But if they are not doing what they said they were going to do, or they're doing something against what you feel, you got to hold them accountable. And then you
Yeah.
have to go to the polls. If it's time for them to go, they have to go. And that's
Yeah.
important. And you all ladies do that as well. As hard as you work for them, you hold them accountable just as strong. And that's important.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
You're on
muted.
mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Louise.
Unmute yourself.
Okay. Now
Okay.
that's unusual for me to be muted.
And you controlling it. You know, that's the strange thing.
Exactly. Well, one of the things I need to say about people who are good leaders, you have to also be a good follower,
Mhm.
because in the positions that we hold, I don't get all of the legislation introduced and passed just without the input from others. For example, anytime there is legislation dealing with the clerks of the court, whether it's the general district court or the circuit court, or whether we're interviewing candidates for judicial positions, I go to Cynthia Morrison and I query her and get her input. And if it has anything to do with the school board, anything to do with education, I go to Costella and I query her. And I take the input that I get from them to help craft the legislation that I introduce. But I also feel that a part of my responsibility as a member of the legislature is to help to defeat bills that adversely impact our communities. So I receive that input as well. When if they call me and say, look, there's a bill that's being introduced and this is the adverse impact that it's going to have on our community, we want you to be on the lookout for it, that automatically goes on my hit list. And you all know I have my own trash can in Richmond that I file bills in if they adversely affect the communities that I represent. And so you can't do this job by yourself. So you shouldn't try to take credit all by yourself. I get a lot of input from a lot of other people about issues, good and bad. And that helps drive what I do when I get to Richmond.
Mhm. And if I could go back for one moment, the question about the mentoring, I think
Yes.
Leah or someone brought up.
Yeah.
And I would like to add that, the president of our group, MLK, Reverend Milton Blunt, he has proposed to the organization that we come up with an academy type program, similar to LEFCO, where we
Yes.
can mentor and groom future leaders. So that is in the works, and we're working on that. And I think, Leah, you were chairing that, weren't you?
Well, Carl and I were supposed to have been sharing it, so we have to get on the ball. I'm telling you.
Right.
I'm meeting with Carl next week, so hopefully we can
Right. Get
come up
that going.
Yes.
It is a much needed function
It is
for us.
because there are a lot of young people out here who are expressing the desire.
Yeah.
And when they talk to me, I often tell them, what are you doing? Ask them, what are you doing? What have you done? How are you paving the way for yourself? Don't just say that you want to run because you've graduated, because you have a degree. You have to do some things in the community. And some get offended, but some listen. So prayerfully, those who listen would be the ones who would probably come to an academy.
Exactly.
To see those things that they need to learn.
Exactly.
But those who get angry, they're not going to attend anybody's academy because they figured that the world owed them something just for being here. So
well, since you brought up Carl Edmonds' name, I was in church and I was seated right next to Carl on Sunday. Well, I was sitting between Connie and Carl. And his grandson, of course, came to church as well, always gives me a big hug, take pictures with him. Macia was my Senate page in the General Assembly this year. I'm getting him started at 14 years old.
how about that? That's when they need to
And
start.
he started as my Senate page this year. And when I went to church, Carl looked around, he said, "Oh, here comes my grandson. He came to see the senator." I said, "Well, I think he came to see his granddad." No, but I'm mentoring him now at 14 years old. And his mom, who's on the school board, and his dad and his granddad, Carl, they all said that he was an even more mature 14-year-old when he came back from the General Assembly this year. Because now he wants to put on his tie, even if it's just with a shirt. He wants to look professional. And every opportunity I had to take pictures with him in his work environment when he was in the legislature, I did that. He performed extremely well in every position that the Senate Clerk's office assigned to him. And now he's eager to do it. He wants to work in my political campaign. I mean, that's the way to start him.
Exactly.
He's 14 years old and he's hungry to learn.
Exactly.
And so I can tell you, he's going to make a good one. He's going to make a good one.
And I think it helps too, Leah, that these days you have to identify the strengths of those people coming in there and sort of cultivate that rather than having a basic outline of what you want them to be. You have to recognize their strength, and that will hold them more, I think, if you cater to their strengths and you know, let them know, okay, you're good at this, so let's work with that. You know, so you might hold them more. So.
And you know, and one thing that Costella said that I think we need to take note of is when she said that she would like to see unity within the city, because I work with kids on a daily basis. And when the kids see the dysfunction that goes on in some of our political arenas, they take note of that.
Yes,
and when I tell a kid, you can't behave like that, and they look back at me and they say, well, if they can do it, how come I can't do it? Kids are watching what we do. They're not listening to the words that are coming out of our mouths, but they're watching our every day-to-day action. And that's how they judge us, based upon what they see.
That's right.
Not what we say, but what they see. And so I, too, Costella, will hope for the unity, because the kids see what's going on. They know what's going on. And they can tell you every negative thing that happens, and they can spew it back out to you. So I, too, Costella, would like to see unity in the city, and hopefully the kids can get some good examples, like you three ladies, but some others that they can see and they can look at and want to be like. I had some little kids, Louise, I saw you was at the Chesapeake Men for Progress event. I had my little young guys with me. And my little young guys saw those guys in those suits and those ties, and one of them came up to me, he said, Miss Leah, I want to get a black suit just like that. It leaves an impression on the kids.
That's
it
right.
Leaves an impression.
And I bought a table for that same group. They're going to have another presentation where they're going to give these scholarships to all of these young African-American males, high school students. And they're going to have that program again next month. And I've already bought the table, Leah. You know, I go every year.
Every year. That's right.
Because those are the students that I choose to mentor, because they've already demonstrated a hunger to do this work, to be involved and to try to serve the community in volunteer positions.
Yes.
And and they're going to be the ones who will make the best candidates for the academy. And so I will be looking seriously to identify some who will be eligible for the academy. I mean, it's probably all will be eligible, and we can't take them all. Right. But you know, every year I try to get at least 4 that I like to mentor.
That's good. That's good.
Ladies, you all are involved. I mean, politics is everywhere, but you all involved in many professional and social organizations. Of course, we have 2 AKAs and 1 Delta here, Cynthia and Costella AKAs, and Senator Lucas at Delta. And you're involved in other things as girlfriends or the links.
They're all links.
Yes.
We're all links.
All those groups too, you know, you get together and you have fun, but all those groups also have a purpose of community and getting out there and serving the community. Talk about some of the things you all do in those groups, you know, that other people might be involved in or get involved in. It doesn't always have to be in the political arena, like Costella said. You can get involved with these groups and do the same type of work.
We're all about service to the community, and almost all of the organizations we belong to. I think there's only one that's like just truly friendship.
Eat, drink, and be merry.
Right. Right. You always have to have at least one of those. But for the most part, we are we have for Delta in particular, we have a 5-point thrust. And what we do is we've identified programs in the community that we work towards. And links, the thing that I like especially was the program, and Cynthia, I think that came under your auspices, and that was working with the school in Africa. And so you might want to talk about that. So we don't just do programs that impact people here in Virginia, in the States. We also try to look abroad to try to see how we can lend a helping hand there as well. And so the organizations that we belong to try to provide services that help humanity.
Yeah, I think that, you know, if young people can get involved, actively involved with any organization that will give them the opportunity for exposure. As I sit here and I listen to all of the mentoring that people have done, including you, Leah, because you're constantly out there mentoring young people.
Yes.
We didn't always have the opportunity to open the doors to certain positions. I mean, being a page at the Virginia General Assembly was not something that we always had the opportunity to allow our young people to experience. Just learning about what the school board does and how it functions and what the impact is. We didn't always have members from our community who sat in those positions that could provide the guidance. In the clerk of court's office, I tend to take interns that are working towards their college degree. It gives them some spending money. It gives them also an opportunity to see how the court functions up close and personal, in case that is the career path that they want to choose. They know before they spend thousands of dollars going to law school only to discover this is not my forte. I don't like it. So I think that community service is critical, and you have to have a servant heart if you're going to be in politics, because as we all opened up with, it's not all about us. It really isn't. And so you have to have a servant heart to start off with and be willing to give of your time, your energy, your talents in order to make the community better. With the links and the Alpha Kappa Alpha, we all have community service outreach projects. Portsmouth, along with the city of Norfolk many, many years ago, we funded a school in Africa. It was $5,000 from each treasurer to build a building in Africa through the Links Incorporated. And Portsmouth put their 5,000 up and Norfolk put their 5,000 up together. And we did do that project under the Links Incorporated. But you do have to want to do something that doesn't just center around you. If you're going to really do this, because I think that's the first thing. You need to look deep within yourself if you're going to run for office and determine why am I running? You know, is it all about I want a title, another line on my resume? I want a name. I want a job that's going to pay me, but I'm not going to do any work. Those are not the right reasons to enter this. You impact too many people. If you're going to run for office, then you need to be a servant leader. And I don't think that a lot of folks, when we do this academy, understand how much of your own personal life and time and energy that you're going to have to put in if you choose to run for elected office. And
you have to have thick skin.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
They don't throw softballs. Everything they throw is a hard
It's
ball.
a hard ball.
You got it. You got it
Or
exactly.
snowball with a rock in it.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I you know, and mentorship is important. It matters when a kid graduates from high school or college. What can they put on their resume?
Exactly.
What can they put on their resume? It does matter. It helps them with their jobs. And even after you've been out here for a while, trying to find yourself and what you really got a passion for doing. And when you're in a leadership position, hopefully you're going to be always cognizant of trying to help groom that person and help them get ready to make that next step, whatever they decide it is. That's part of the deal. You know, you try to help them like others helped us, because none of us got here on our own. When you brought up Miss Overton, you know, I ran and I lost my first race, but her and Mr. King came back, took me by the hand and said, you need to try this again and we're going to help you. And they did. And I was successful at it. I had the skills from my corporate world job to run the office, but they took me to the community and they introduced me to the community. And they made sure that I dotted those I's and crossed the T's with the people who really matter. And it's the citizens of Portsmouth.
That's correct. That's correct.
So yeah, and I try to pay it forward because that's all I was ever asked from the two of them is to pay it forward. I did this for you. You make sure you do it to help somebody else.
Exactly. Exactly. I want to say something about Costella. She tries to remind us that she's retired, but Costella is she is an encourager, because I watch on social media every day. She's encouraging somebody to do something. She's complimenting somebody about something all the time. And so that's not retirement. You still working, you just working at it in a different direction.
Different way.
Yeah, in a different way.
You know, since you said that, that's what Pastor Blunt told me, that he reads my Facebook post and he says, you are an encourager.
And see, I didn't know my pastor said that.
I believe, and it's strange that you said that, but I do believe that sometimes people just need an encouraging word. Now I'm an encourager, but I can also set you in a different direction too. You might not want to hear. But because Don Scott, I was talking with him last night, and he was telling me something he was telling me, and he said, you know, you just came back and said to me, now, Don, you know, that's some BS. And I said, did I say that? But I said the word. And then someone else was telling me that they called me with something, and I said, you know, that's some BS. I said, so that must be my famous line. When you're just trying to talk a bunch of bull to me. But
very effective, very effective.
Very effective.
Yes.
But yeah, and going back when James was talking about the organizations, say, for example, the links, AKs and whatever, you know, we've been in these organizations for so long. And I know the links, we did the piano in the schools for the kids at John Tyler. We've done the Blooming Art Contest where we give them money for the high schools, just encourage them. So being a part of these organizations is that we as members are expected to put our money into them. To be a member, you have to pay these dues. To do certain things, we have to support it. So it kind of puzzles me when I watch city council meetings and I see these nonprofits that are always asking the city for money. Because from my perspective, service organization, nonprofit organizations, we were the ones that had to put up the money to pay for those piano lessons in the schools.
That's correct. Well, those programs we did.
Yeah, so, you know, I see it, and I'm all for the programs that they have that are supposed to, what they call violence interrupters or whatever they can do to help our kids. But at some point, I do believe accountability and outcome measures are important. That you ask for the funding, will tell us what you're going to do with the funding, but then come back and tell us what kind of outcomes.
Right.
You know. are people having with that?
I agree
So
with you on
that-
that one, Costella.
I mean, really, that's and
I
now
ran my organization for 27 years, never went for funding. So,
right,
I mean,
exactly. So,
Le-
you know, but people can get a lot of experience, community experience, working with different groups, organizations, and then you rise up through those groups and you
exactly,
become president or
Uh-huh.
leaders of these groups.
exactly,
And that also teaches you how to communicate
exactly.
and work
Exactly.
with, yeah, because I can tell you those ladies are they're educated, they have top jobs, they really think that they're hot stuff, you know what I mean? So so sometimes you just have to learn to use your communication skills effectively,
That's
which
true.
will help prepare you also to run for
Exactly.
office.
Well, you know what, Leah said something early on in the program, and she was talking about going back 40 years ago when she and I were both involved in very heavily in the NAACP, traveling not just all over the Commonwealth, but all over the nation.
That's
We were
true.
at NAACP national conventions,
That's right.
and I served on every committee in the NAACP and a lot of them as chair until I finally got to be president NAACP. I wanted to serve in each of those positions because I wanted to know exactly what their functions were. So when people would ask me about NAACP, I would be able to tell them and recommend to them, you might want to serve on the legal committee because you're interested in issues affecting people who are incarcerated. And so going through all of those committees made me a better president in NAACP. So when I traveled around the country, I didn't feel out of place. I felt like I belonged where I was and I was able to make a difference. And so that's how you learn. You get involved and serve in every position you can and learn as much as you can. And there's no better life learning or skills than that you learn by doing in these organizations.
Ladies, as we wind down, I'm sure the hosts have some other questions or comments, especially the Colonel. He's been kind of quiet, and Leah, and you know, I want to mention this. It's been kind of strange. You know, on our Facebook page, usually we have a lot of people making comments, but everybody must be mesmerized because everybody is just showing everybody's just watching. Because Leah, do
Well,
you
that's
see
a good thing.
That's a good thing because a lot of people.
I was looking at that. I pulled my phone over, James, just to see that as well. And it just seems as though, as you said, except for Eric Perryman, of course, he always has something to say, and we always appreciate his comments. And so,
well, we
but
usually
it looks
get
like
long commentary
everybody's watching and
listening. So
and saying yes.
their ear.
Okay, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Very good. Very
All right,
good.
Colonel, you.
Hello?
Colonel?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Colonel was watching too and listening.
Yeah, he was mesmerized.
I've been mesmerized because one, I'd like to thank the three of you for coming on today. And I am proud to have known you. And I look forward to seeing for you doing great things now and in the future. And I'll end it like that.
Very good. Very good.
Well, ladies, it has been indeed a pleasure. And for a while, I didn't think I was going to be able to get on, but I'm glad that I was able to get on, although I was late. But I thank you for the conversation. I thank you for your agreeing to come on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And I think that you gave some worthwhile information to those who may not have seen the whole picture. You know, they may have ideas as to who the three of you are, or they may have heard things about who the three of you are, but I'm sure that as of tonight, those who are listening and those who are paying attention, they will really get to know who you are and the fact that you paid your dues in order to get to where you are. And not only did you pay your dues to get to where you are, but you also help those who have come behind you and helping them financially, as well as helping them through your efforts and helping them throughout their campaign. So those are things that people need to hear and to know. And, everybody has all these misconceptions. So hopefully we have cleared up some of those misconceptions that they may have had out in the community.
Mhm.
Yes, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies, you
It's
know, I
been a pleasure.
appreciate you.
It's been
Oh,
a
go
pleasure to
ahead.
be on. No, I was
And-
just saying it's a pleasure to be on, especially with
Sure.
my two ride or die sisters.
That's right. I've enjoyed it, James.
Yes, and I go back
Good.
a long way with all of you as well, and I'm glad you agreed to be on, and you're always welcome to come on here and talk about what you're doing, what you continue to do, even in your retirement, Costella, until another 1 year opening comes up on the school board.
Right.
Maybe
Exactly.
2 months or something like that. And Costello, I'd like to also publicly thank you for supporting Portsmouth Coffee Talk financially and any other way that you have been in the past. We really appreciate that. It has helped us tremendously. So we appreciate you and thank you a lot. And if
You're
you all
welcome.
have any last comments you'd like to make?
Let me
before
just
we-
say one thing. James
ahead.
Cullen says, thank you for your amazing contributions, ladies.
Oh,
Mr.
thank you,
Collins,
James.
Mr. Collins, yes.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
James.
Cullen.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
James,
I would like to just throw out one thing that, you know, we do this because of who we are, but I also say that we have to thank Pastor Emeritus Joe B.
Yes.
Flynn,
Oh, B.
Mhm.
Fleming, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
because I remember when we were doing I think it was I'm not sure it was a kickoff or campaign kickoff for someone. I don't know if it was Ken Wright or whomever. And I told them I was going to reveal to them, who they used to call us Charlie's Angels too,
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah, forgot about that. Yeah.
And Karen James gave us that name when Matthew James was elected, said that we were Charlie's Angels.
Yeah.
And I told them I was going to reveal to them who our Charlie was. And they were like, well, who is Charlie? And I said, our Charlie was Reverend Joe B. Fleming. He was the one that gave us the direction,
Yes.
the orders, the mission. If you choose to accept it, this is what we need to do. And he called me today and he sounded so good.
Uh-huh.
And I was just so happy to hear from him. And he was just honored recently, with the United Negro
Mhm.
College
Yeah.
Fund. So I just thought about that. He was our Charlie then, and he's our Charlie now.
Okay.
Yes,
And we
he is.
appreciate everything that he's done in this community.
Exactly.
I have
Just
to say
wanted
this,
to add that note.
I have to piggyback on that, Reverend Joe B. Fleming's. We all know how he used to raise those monies at the spirit of the moment.
Oh, yes.
He get you digging deep in your pocket. And I have to, when Virginia Union alumni, he came there one time and our goal was like $10,000. When he finished, we gained like $20,000 within 2 hours.
No, I know.
Just
I'm
with
not
the people
surprised.
that were at that luncheon,
Yes.
people just went into the back pocket, went in the side pocket when he finished, and it's just funny. You talk about going to the city council to get money. They just didn't know Joe B. Fleming. They had to
Mhm.
call on him and he would have raised
That's
any
right.
kind of money. They
Exactly.
needed.
Exactly.
But we
That's
appreciate
right.
him. He's one of the
Yes, we
pillars in
do.
our community
Yes.
that's behind a lot of the political decisions that were made and made sure we stayed together rather
Mhm.
than
Yes.
fighting each other.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, ladies, thanks again, and we appreciate it. And Leah is back, so I think we can
Yes.
do this. Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here for our voice.
For our community.
In our future.
And
And we
ladies,
salute
we
each of
salute you
We salute
on
we
this
salute
Women's
you.
History Month. Thanks a lot. We
Yes.
really
Thank,
appreciate it.
thank you.
so
Thank you
much.
so
for
very
having
much.
us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Enjoy the
Happy
conversation.
end of Women in History Month. We need
Yes.
to make it a whole
Yes.
year.
Excellent.
We need to make it a
Excellent way.
year. That's
Yes.
right.
Well, we celebrate you
Excellent.
all year anyway, so.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
What a way
Take
to
care.
close the month out, though. What a good way
Yes,
to
it
close the
is.
month out. So,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
uh-huh.
Thank you all for having us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for agreeing.
Alrighty.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah, Facebook, James.